And I think that sort of leads into the point of next year is sort of the year that we're going to see the consumer drone companies either grow a ton or totally fall apart.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 79. This is the second of a regular series where I interview those who cover the drone industry and get their perspectives on key stories, people, and events that are shaping the industry. In Volume 2 of Stories of the Drone, we hear from someone that has been covering the industry for more than 4 years. Sally French, aka the Drone Girl, is a reporter for MarketWatch and a drone enthusiast. She's here to talk about some of the key stories from 2016 that she's covered and what that might mean for the rest of the industry as it heads into 2017. We had a great conversation about drones, technology, events, and even learned a few new things about Sally herself. I'm sure you're going to enjoy the interview, so let's pick it up where I asked Sally to introduce herself.
My name is Sally French. I am the Drone Girl, and I think I just do everything involving flying and writing about and testing out drones.
We talked probably about a year ago, and there's been quite a bit that's been going on in the drone industry. How would you characterize this last year, 2016, with all the things that have been going on?
Yeah, it's crazy. When you asked me to talk about the things that happened in the last year, I started, brainstorming, like, what's new and what's the latest. And I realized so much has happened since the last year that we chatted. I mean, going back to, Part 107 happened this year, and that honestly feels like 5 years ago that happened. So many different drone models have come out. It's crazy that we've already gone through basically 2 levels of Phantoms. We have the Phantom 4, the Phantom 4 Pro. We have the Mavic, or Mavic. I'm still not sure how to say it. There's just so much going on. There's been, so much progress on the commercial side, too. We see things like drones at Disney World. It's just remarkable how much has happened in only a year.
If you had to choose a word to describe 2016, what would that word be?
Ooh, maybe, how about adolescent? I feel like we're sort of in this stage of the drone industry where we're out of the baby stages. Big decisions are being made. The FAA legalized commercial drone delivery, but we're still really figuring it out. A lot of people are frustrated with the FAA that you can't fly over people and, you can't fly at night, but then you can get a waiver for that. And so there's a lot of things like you can't do this and you can do this. And it just reminds me of being 16 and getting my driver's license, and you can't drive your friends, but you can drive your siblings, and all these little loopholes of, what it's like being a teenager. And that's sort of how I feel the drone industry is at right now.
Do you think we're at the beginning stage of adolescence or moving through it and there's some light at the end of the tunnel?
Yeah, there's definitely like some light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like, we have our driver's licenses, we have our FAA, Part 107 licenses, but, we're still figuring it out. There's still limitations. Just like when you're 16, it's still not a free-for-all driving. At least in my state, we couldn't drive our friends when we were 16, which I thought was a crazy rule. And so we're sort of there right now. Now we have really good quality drones. We have a stepping stone in place of, how you can commercially use drones. And so I feel like we're at a really good spot. It's a lot farther than I think I expected it would have been even 2 years ago.
And now you've been covering the drone industry as an analyst and a reporter for how long now?
Maybe I started in 2013, so it's been a while.
And which publication do you write for?
I'm currently writing my full-time job for MarketWatch. We're the little sister site of the Wall Street Journal, but I'm also, doing some freelancing here and there. I love Drone 360 magazine. I wrote a piece recently for them. Some stuff for professional photographers magazines, since photographers are all over this.
With some of the stories over this last year with so much happening, what comes to mind as some of the key stories that you've covered that really stand out?
Yeah, I feel like this year has kind of been the year of sense and avoid. I feel like every year has had kind of a different vibe to it. I think, there was a year of drone delivery when Amazon announced that. And then there was like the year of consumer drones when finally drones became a reasonable price that consumers could buy. And I feel like this is the year of sense and avoid. Early on, we had DJI and Unique up against each other in pretty much the same, I think it was even the same week or at least the same month that they both announced their drones with sense and avoid. And it was sort of a competition to get those out first. And then the Unique Typhoon ended up adding the Intel RealSense. So that's such a great partnership with Intel. And then you have people like Parrot, who they this year launched their Slam Dunk, which enables drones to understand and map their surroundings. So I think is sort of the big trend this year has been improving this technology around sense and avoid, which ultimately means we can have better inspections and better search and rescue applications and, of course, better deliveries, which is what it seems like everyone wants. So definitely 2016 was the year of sense and avoid.
Were there any other key developments that stand with that?
I'm not sure about that, but we've had a lot of really cool commercial applications. I mentioned earlier, Intel partnered with Disney, and they just launched this month even a drone light show. And I was so shocked and excited to see that. I mean, I love Disney. I used to work there, actually, and totally grew up going there and have seen more fireworks shows than I can count. And it's so crazy to see a drone replacing or augmenting those shows. And also, I mean, you think of Disney and Intel being companies that really, follow all the rules and safety first. And there's a lot of red tape just because there's so many layers in this company. So the fact that they got the green light to do that, I was shocked by that. I was talking to a lawyer at Intel the other day, and I said, honestly, I'm shocked that you let this go through. And it's so cool to see that. And, that we're getting past the red tape and Disney feels comfortable with whatever it is, 100 drones flying over their property every night for a light show is just fantastic.
Is there anything that you've covered this year that, sort of the beginnings of a bigger story that we haven't heard yet? Any technologies that you've covered that you think are going to be things that we'll be talking about next year?
Yeah, I mean, definitely the sense and avoid is sort of the big technology. The smaller drones are obviously a trend. The Unique Breeze came out, which was a nice little drone and folds up to the size of a soda can. And then the Mavic follows up with that. And then, of course, we had the Karma, which got recalled. And I think that sort of leads into the point of next year is sort of the year that we're going to see the consumer drone companies either grow a ton or totally fall apart. So we saw that this year with 3D Robotics. They struggled and laid off quite a few people and certainly had to change their mission and getting out of the consumer drone business. We saw GoPro have to recall their drones. And I think we found, it's really hard to make a drone. I get so many Kickstarter pitches and I tell every single one of them, and I hope they're listening. I say, get back to me when your drone is ready on the market, because it's easy to make one drone. I mean, relatively easy, but the hard part is producing it on a large scale at the same quality. And so I think, a lot of companies are realizing that, and it sounds like even GoPro realized that is, you're creating something that's quite dangerous, so it's hard to make it well and make it safe.
Right. Plus, everyone seemed to be targeting the same time to get their drone out to try to be the first of the small consumer drones in that area.
Yeah, and everything is changing so fast. I mean, GoPro has been working on their drone for quite some time. I knew that they had been working on a drone as early as 2013, and in 2016 is when it came out. But it had to go through so many iterations as, we can't keep up with DJI. I just wrote a story about, is DJI's pricing cannibalizing themselves? Because it seems like every 4 months they keep coming out with a new drone. And these other companies have to keep up with it. It's crazy.
Well, they came out with the Mavic, and then a few weeks later, they came out with 2 new ones?
Yeah, and then they came out with the Phantom 4 Pro, and that has sense and avoid on all 4 sides. And then they came out with the Inspire 2, which is just light years ahead of the original Inspire 1. And so it's crazy that how can any other company keep up with this? DJI is doing great things.
It's getting to a point where how can consumers keep coming up with the new models so regularly?
Yeah, but you know what? I have to say, I'm recommending all my friends now get the Phantom 3 Standard, and I know it's like 4 models old at this point. When you add the Phantom 4 and the Phantom 4 Pro and the Phantom 3 Pro, the Phantom 3 Standard is so old, but it's so cheap now. I think it's like $399 or something. And so for consumers, it's a great thing because whenever a new drone comes out, they just slash the prices on the old one. And I mean, it's only a year old technology even. So I think it's a great thing for consumers. It's tempting to want to have the latest and greatest, but I mean, now is the time to get a deal on a Phantom 3 Standard.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially for somebody that is still a novice in flying drones, that it makes it a little bit easier, a little bit more palatable to spend $400 on a drone, on a good drone.
Right, for sure. I get so many people who say, I want to get a drone for my mom and I want to spend under $500 and I want the camera to be, really good. And, 3 years ago, people would say, and it has to have HD quality video and, 4K video. And 2 or 3 years ago, I would say, yeah, right. Like $500 is crazy. Like, how about $1,500 and then we'll talk. And, it was ridiculous that my friends would ask for recommendations. And I said, I hope your budget's like huge. And now, they say the same thing. I want to get this gift for my friend. It needs to be, around $300. And now I say something like a Phantom is perfect for you.
Yeah, I think you're right. Of the stories that you wrote this year, what was your favorite story, the one that you personally covered?
Ooh, I did write something, and I wish I had more time to write more about it, and maybe I will, but I was in the Middle East earlier this year for a drone conference there. I was the chairperson of that drone conference, and to be honest, I didn't know a lot about Middle Eastern drone laws, but I now know that they are on a completely different level than the U.S. is. So I'll give you an example. You can fly drones, and I was actually struck. I landed in Dubai, and I was struck by the fact that right as soon as I landed, there was a store in the airport selling all these drones. I was like, wow, like Dubai is drone central. But there is a law that you cannot record videos from the air, which means that you can legally fly drones, but you cannot photograph with them. So to me, I'm like, what is even the point of a drone? Like, I don't understand the people who just fly around just for fun. And more power to those people, but I don't get it. But that's all you can do in Dubai. So if that's your thing, move to Dubai. If that's not your thing, then then don't live there. So that was super crazy. And then also to fly drones commercially in Dubai, you have to apply for each individual drone flight. And there's some crazy fee that comes along with it, like $300 per drone flight, which means, if you are some commercial operation and you're flying, the same flight around your oil and gas rig, and you just want to do one flight a day to inspect the oil pipeline or whatever, that, add 300 a day every day, and you're looking at, 6 figures a year going to the government just to look at your flights or to approve your flights. And it gave me some really healthy perspective because I know a lot of people, including myself, are frustrated with the FAA and think the FAA isn't moving fast enough. And, people complained about the $5 drone registration fee. And I'm like, okay, let's put this in perspective. Someone's complaining about paying $5 to register their drone. And, someone who wants to inspect their cell towers every day in Dubai has to pay $110,000 a year to do that. And so it gave me some healthy perspective of, actually the US is really far ahead.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I would have never thought those kind of fees were imposed.
Right, exactly. So I think my message to everyone in the U.S. is when you think you have it bad, at least you can fly and not really have to pay a fee.
Who, in your opinion, in 2016, you think made a real impact on the drone industry? What individuals really sort of rose to the top this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's like a lot of really good people, the sort of regular people who have been in the drone industry for a few years now. There's even people who've been in it for 20 years and worked in drones in the Army. But I was thinking about people who I just met this year. Natalie Chung at Intel is one of those people. I just met her this year at a conference, and she's spearheading Intel's drone and light show arm, and she just has so much passion, and I think that's a really cool use case. A lot of people, still have trouble accepting drones, and one of the big things that helped us accept drones was drone delivery. And it's because we can all relate to getting packages delivered. We can't really relate to a cell tower inspection. So the public is not psyched about drones doing cell tower inspections because none of us have really experienced that in our day-to-day life. But, in that same vein, we've all seen fireworks. And so imagining what a firework looks like with drones, I think, is really helpful in promoting positive uses of drones. And so I think Natalie's work has really done that. Someone else who I think has done a great job this year, I have to say, is Michael Huerta, the head of the FAA. And I know there are a lot of pain points with the FAA about them moving too slowly or making it hard to use drones commercially even still. But I actually met him in person at South by Southwest. We did, I think it was in February of this year, we did a panel together, and it was really incredible. One of the things that he said was, who 5 years ago would expect that the head of the FAA would be at South by Southwest, which is like this trendy music and tech festival. But you can tell that he's really embracing drones, and he's realized, the FAA was too strict, and the FAA did make a lot of mistakes on drones in the past. He walked back on some drone education rules. So previously, the FAA said that schools could not use drones unless they had a 333 permit, because they said since a school collects tuition or pays their professors, that's a commercial use, which is so crazy because why would you say, let's have less drone education? Everyone says we want more drone education. So this year, the FAA, Michael Huerta, announced that schools could use drones for educational purposes, which is just really, really great to hear. And I know it's always hard to admit you were wrong. And the FAA has really done that. And I think that's really powerful.
Were there any stories or any events this year that really surprised you?
Ooh, that surprised me. Have you been to EAA AirVenture?
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, that surprised me. That was so fun. So they invited me to come to EAA AirVenture, and it's the world's largest air show. And it's so crazy. They have like all these military planes. They've got, the newest airliners. They have these really awesome little jets that CEOs ride around in. They have like a World War II reenactment area with, planes from that era. And it's so fun. Everyone is so enthusiastic about showing their planes, and I got to actually ride in all kinds of airplanes too. And so they brought me out because they said, we're having a drone area and we want you to teach some of the young women how to fly drones. And so it was so cool. A lot of girls come because, their parents want to be a part of EAA and maybe they don't know how to fly a plane, but they did a camp for these young women and we taught them how to fly drones, and it was so awesome. Just giving them all their first drones to practice on, and they were like these little toy drones that are obviously really difficult to fly because they don't, stabilize or anything. But that was so surprising, and it was so awesome because I go to all these drone conferences, and a lot of them are really serious. And, it's people talking about policy and law, and drones are serious, obviously, but EAA reminded me, why we're all in this, and we should be in it for the fun. And EAA was just people so excited to let you go inside their plane and tell you their story. And I just love that. That surprised me the most this year.
Where was that held and when?
It was this summer, I think in July, in Wisconsin.
Okay.
And they do it every year, so you should totally go. And they're trying to ramp up their drone scene. So,
it sounds like fun.
Yeah, definitely worth checking out. Yeah. Oshkosh, Wisconsin, place to be. It's like this tiny little airport, and it becomes the busiest airport during that 1 week. Like 3 planes have to land on the runway at one time because there's so many planes coming in.
Wow. That sounds like pretty cool. Picking up on something you mentioned about women in drone at the air show, what was this last year like in that area? Were you able to see some progress made?
Yeah, actually I have. I think my benchmark for women in the drone industry, it's the Bechdel test. Are you familiar with it?
No, tell me about it.
So basically it's like a thing in Hollywood movies that it's the Bechdel test. If you pass, it means that there has to be a scene in a movie where 2 women talk to each other and it's not about a male love interest. And this is actually like surprisingly hard to find. Even Star Wars like barely passed the Bechdel test. And so there's a Bechdel test for tech conferences, and it's the same thing. It has to be 2 women on a panel not talking about women in drones. The panel can't be a women in drones panel. It has to be like a normal like policy or like engineering type panel. And like that's also super hard to find. Like I've called out conferences for not having any female speakers, which is just crazy. Like how do you have 30 speakers and none are a woman or none are a woman? And so this year I went to multiple panels. Our panel at South by Southwest passed the Bechdel test with flying colors. And I think that's really great to see. And, there've been more women in the drone industry and they keep building each other up. And I think that's really important. So yeah, it's been great to see so many female leaders. I could name a million.
Could you name 3 or 4 that come to mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's Natalie Chang at Autel. There's Rihanna Lakin, who founded Amelia Drone Hearts. Sharon Rossmark. Abby Lyle, who's an awesome drone photographer and teacher. Fane Greenwood is doing really awesome drone stuff at Harvard for humanitarian use case. I could go on forever. I could just give you a list.
It's great that you have a list to give because it does show that there is some progress that maybe people aren't aware of, but there is progress in that area.
Yeah.
Who should we watch for in 2017, or maybe in other ways? Who should we be following on Twitter?
Oh, who should we follow on Twitter? I love that drone show. They're super reliable and good friends of mine. There have been really good reporters out there lately also covering drones and very helpful to keep me on my toes. So Ben Popper at The Verge is really smart, doing good things. Ryan Mack at Forbes, he wrote the piece about 3D robotics and their layoffs and did really brilliant reporting. So there's good stuff out there.
Now, I saw the movie Drone Invasion, and I thought it was very well made. I thought it was really neat. How did you feel about the movie? You were actually in the movie, and then how did you feel about after seeing the movie?
Yeah, I've never seen myself on like a movie theater screen before. So yeah, I mean, it was so fun to work with them. It's crazy to think we started shooting that. I mean, I don't even know when they started shooting it, but I did at their very first International Drone Day, which I think was 2 years ago. And I feel like they like had to cut things that we said in the movie because like they had changed so quickly, in the movie when we're like, oh, the FAA didn't do this or whatever. I remember they shot this one scene with an Inspire 1 and it had just come out and it was like the coolest thing. And now, the Inspire 2 is out. So just how much has changed in the duration of that documentary is wild.
Yeah, it just takes a long time to make a movie, no matter how fast you think it's going to go.
Right. And they did it really quickly. I mean, they did it in like 2 years, but how much has changed in 2 years is crazy.
So let's get caught up on you. What's 2016 been like for you?
I racked up a lot of frequent flyer miles. I did all kinds of stuff. I mean, so I went to EAA for the first time. I went to the Middle East for the first time, which was so much fun. I went to South by Southwest for the first time. I did cool stuff. I spoke at the FAA's. They host their own in-house conference for women. And so it was really cool. I met all these women who work for the FAA, not necessarily in drones, but in areas like air traffic control. And they had all kinds of questions for me about, what do drone pilots need to know when they're interacting with air traffic control to say that they're flying near an airport. And that was like such a cool experience. I felt like I was on the other end of, the type of people who I talked to. We went to the typical drone shows like Inner Drone is so much fun as always, Drones Data X and AVSI. So lots of traveling. I got Part 107 certified. Have you done that yet?
I haven't done that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. You got to do it. It was like not as traumatizing as I thought. Definitely like the point when you're like, I'm just going to submit these, like, because you want to like go through and make sure you like got the questions, or you think you got them. And then I totally I was like, oh, I talked myself out of them and changed some of them in the last minute. And then I was like, no, Sally, like, just stop. Just turn it in. And so like that moment when you've like decided to just be done with the test and then like wait for the reviewer to come in and check your answers is like the most stressful part of my year. But it was not really that traumatizing.
What drones have you been flying lately? And what can you tell us about some of your experience in drone flying recently?
Yeah, well, I got a Mavic in the mail today, actually, so I'm going to fly that this weekend. But I've been flying this year. I flew the X-Star from Autel, which I totally love. I'm having so much fun with that. The Unique Typhoon H is really awesome. Tried my first racing drone. That was super exciting. So all kinds of stuff. I mean, tons of new drones out. Before, it was like I just had the Phantom 1 for like a whole year, and that's all I flew. And now I like have all kinds of new things.
You had one article that you wrote earlier this year, I think it was maybe 4 months ago, that I thought was really interesting, was how to create your own low-cost drone racing system.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a great how-to article for people that wanted to experience it without spending a lot of money.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's using the Blade Nano. QX is that drone, and then you just need to buy an RC transmitter and the Fat Shark goggles. And, I never really got into racing earlier than this year because I don't really enjoy building my own drones. I think that's awesome, the people who do, but that's not a passion of mine. And so I just never got into it because you had to build it yourself if you wanted to do it. And so now you can pretty much, I wouldn't totally say off the shelf is the right word, but you can buy items and kind of, just sync them up and hook them together and make your own racing setup without having to, drill anything together.
Yeah, plus the system that you wrote about could be used totally indoors. So it gives people that sensation of flying first person without having to go outside or go very far from their place. Yeah,
I live in the city, and it's like such an ordeal to go fly drones because I live in a busy city with buildings all around. And so it's nice. I can just fly drones in my house and put on the FPV goggles, and it's minimal effort, which is super convenient.
Right. Do you have any passion projects or causes that you're involved in that you're really trying to move forward in 2017?
Yeah, I mean, I think, for all women interested in getting involved in drones, Amelia Drone Hearts, it's a private Facebook group. You just have to request to join, but they accept everyone. Is such a great community to be involved in, and it's just really supportive people. So I would recommend anyone join that.
That'd be cool. And what would people be surprised to learn about you?
Oh, I do have a life outside of drones. I know I'm the drone girl, but I have other things too. I just finished off some pretty serious training for a powerlifting competition.
Oh, really?
And I'm just starting to train for another powerlifting competition in March. So that's like my other secret life besides drones.
Good for you. That's really great.
Yeah.
I started talking today about a word for 2016. Uh-huh. What do you think would be the word for 2017?
Ooh. What do you think is a word for 2017?
For me, the word dynamic comes up. I just think the changes that we saw today are just going to spin off a lot of different iterations for next year.
I like that.
And some of the things I think that you talked about, how companies are going to respond, I think we'll see a lot of restructuring in the marketplace.
Yes.
As companies start to establish their dominance and, they're the go-to, and others either have to change the business strategy completely.
Yeah.
And then as the applications, what can really drive the use of the drones, I think is really going to be very interesting next year.
Yeah, I think you're totally right on like the restructuring. You're right, it's such a dynamic industry, but there's also, a lot of people are taking a step back, I think, for 2017 and being like, okay, how do we actually make money? And even, I don't know if you saw Google, they have their drone delivery Project Wing by X, which formerly was Google. and they had a partnership with Starbucks and they actually canceled it. And that to me totally exemplifies what you said about restructuring. And, you know, the idea of drones delivering Starbucks is really hot, but is it really that realistic? And is it gonna make money? You know, is someone gonna pay $10 to deliver their $3 latte? Like, probably not. And so I think you're totally right on the restructuring angle and people really looking at, okay, where is this industry realistically going beyond just the hype machine?
Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should?
Oh, man, I don't know. Fly some drones and get that Part 107 certification. It feels awesome. It's seriously not traumatizing. I hate test taking. That's definitely my big anxiety in life. So I did it, so you can do it.
That's it for episode 79 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Sally French and learning about some of the key stories from 2016. I want to thank Sally for sharing her insights and perspectives. If you want more information or want to connect with Sally, check out her website at thedronegirl.com. And also be sure to follow her articles at MarketWatch to get the latest info on the drone industry. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a positive review on iTunes. It really does help. And as always, I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.